It's off to school and work, waiting for some fun while my boss acts like a jerk. Pro show afternoons, midnight sketch can't come too soon. The afternoon and sketch can't come too soon. But at night I'm filled with dread. I know just what I'll do instead. Come on and follow me. It's time you see for Lorn and Apollo. Time to laugh and learn. Come feel the burn of what the fandom was. What random fun doesn't escape. Isn't it great? Late night with Lorn and Apollo.
Good evening, folks. Glad to see you all out there. It is Tuesday evening, and I'm here with my co-host for the evening, Marv. Kevin Apollo let me know last night that he was going to have some conflicts tonight. There's a possibility he might jump in late in the show, but I'm not sure if he's going to be able to do that for sure or not. So Marv graciously is sacrificing some sleeping hours and jumping in.
What few exist.
Yes, I really do appreciate it, man. I know this is late for you. We've had kind of an interesting day in a way. I think that we got some. Well, I think so. Do you not think so?
I don't know. This is my sixth stream of the day, so the day is kind of like colliding for me.
Yep.
But I mean, I guess it's been interesting. What do you think has been interesting today?
Well, we had two trailer drops that presented an interesting contrast,
Oh, yes.
but I think the main thing for me is I'm feeling optimism, and it's a feeling I haven't felt in a very long time. Maybe it's misplaced. I may be getting overexcited. I hope not. But
We had one good trailer, and we had one absolute dog water trailer, literally.
see, you're being a little harsher on it than I would be, but you know that I'm willing to be a little more forgiving of Gunn's take on this stuff. So, but I don't really have expectations one way or another for Supergirl.
It's another movie where the object of the film is to save that specific dog.
I don't really see the object of Superman as saving the dog, though.
It is the primary thing that he has to do in the end of the movie is save the dog.
I think it's a lot more important for him to make sure that those portals get closed and they don't rip the universe apart.
That's a side effect of having to save the dog.
The dog's a plot device. You know, if the dog died and he saved the universe, you'd still feel like, well, at least the universe was saved.
Once again, James Gunn's dog is the centerpiece of a film.
All right. Forget James Gunn for a minute.
You cannot take James Gunn out of the conversation because he is so ingrained in that universe. We have been hearing now out of Warner Brothers that creatives are being brought into DC and just basically being told you have to make James Gunn's movie the way James Gunn would make it.
Okay, but hear me out here. One of the reasons that I'm willing to give him some rope, I'm discounting the TV stuff, okay, and talked about this a little bit on the after party this morning. I have no interest in Creature Commandos. I don't care about Peacemaker. I think Lanterns is going to be terrible, but I don't care. I think you can write off the TV stuff because, from my standpoint, the distributors of the TV stuff have factored in the cost of knowing what the content they're getting is, and they think they're getting enough in advertising money from it that it's fine. That doesn't impact the cinematic universe. The cinematic universe is the thing that matters to me. And DC, I think, has done a better job of handling things like a multiverse than Marvel has, because that's always been part of the DC universe. They reboot every couple of decades. They do multiple different takes on characters, and I think that's more acceptable in DC than it is in Marvel.
Do you mean like in a broad, like including the comics kind of way they handle it better, or?
Yes.
I would say
Yes.
like they haven't really handled it in like physical media yet. Like
No, it's new for them theatrically, kind of, unless you're counting the DCAU stuff.
yeah, I
But
feel
what
like they can't do it now because Marvel has driven it into the ground, and when people hear multiverse now, they check right out.
okay, that's not exactly the point I'm making. I'm not saying that they're telling a multiversal story, but I am saying because they have multiple versions of the DC universe, that having a strong authorial voice is more common, I think, in DC than in Marvel, because having those different eras allows you to have different takes on the characters, I think, more broadly than it does in the Marvel universe. That's my opinion.
Mhm.
And the other thing that I would say is we argue, or at least I argue, and I think you would too, a strong authorial voice is something that we're looking for in something like Star Wars. I would much rather have a creator with a strong vision who is calling the shots than I would have them making a movie by committee. And so I totally get it if Gunn isn't your taste, and if you don't like what Gunn is doing. And I think that the market will.
I think a strong voice and like a quality voice are two very different things. Because Gunn has a very strong voice, sure, but so does Alex Kurtzman. Like,
I agree, but I would still argue you want that even if the quality is bad, because the marketplace should speak there, and if he doesn't please the audience, then you have one guy to get rid of, and then you can reboot and come in with another strong authorial voice. Whereas if you distribute that amongst a committee, it gets a lot harder to root that stuff out. I totally get if Gunn isn't your taste.
well, yeah, but like Marvel being bad doesn't make this good.
No, and I'm not suggesting that it does, but I'm also not willing to say that it's bad without seeing the movie. The question for me is going to be, and I mentioned this in the after party as well. Maybe part of the reason I'm more open to this is that I don't have strong feelings about Supergirl. I never followed Supergirl. I never read the comics. I know of her as a character. I know there's many different versions of her, but I don't really care about her. So I'm more willing to go in there and see, okay, what's your take?
I very much do care about Kara Zor-El as a character. So when I see her being, a drunken sorority chick, with mental problems, I immediately check out.
Well, this is kind of what the question for me is going to be, and I think this is what's going to determine whether the movie works for me or not. What's her character arc? Does she have an arc? My assumption is that what you're seeing is what they're wanting to show you as the before part of the arc.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect she's going to be a much different character on the after portion of the arc. So the question is, 1, do they do that? 2, do they earn it? And 3, how do they earn it? And just my personal hunch is Crypto's going to be the hook there to start with because that's the being that she cares about. But I have a feeling that the arc of this story is going to be, she's going to have to learn that she's not as alone as she thinks she is, as she's rebelling, trying to claim that she doesn't have any people. And I think she's going to find out she does have some people that show up and support her, and that causes her to be more open and more mature. We'll see. If they don't do that, I don't think the movie will work.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
Tom, what do you think?
You're muted, Tom.
You're muted, Tom.
Yes, I double muted myself. Sorry. I'm interested to see what a bad movie they did to Supergirl. That's my thing for it. I don't like what they did with the Superman movie, but that's a lot of it. So,
all right. So I'm outnumbered on this one, obviously, and I'm not presenting Supergirl as saying that I think this is a movie that's going to rescue Hollywood. I want to make that clear.
Oh, look, even Superman, the Superman movie's biggest fan, Culture Casino, in the chat is bashing this.
Yeah.
I only like one thing in this movie. Marvin brought it up on his stream. Lobo.
Yeah, I think Lobo looks great. And okay, so that's an interesting question. Do you think, is there a possibility we get a Lobo spin-off movie? Do you think that there's, because
I'm sure
that's a real niche character in DC, but But boy, he's got a distinctive look, and they nailed it in the trailer.
I think you get a Lobo spin-off streaming series, and of course, it's a streaming series for DC, so it's going to be F-bomb, 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 F-bomb nudity.
Yeah,
Fits more for that character.
I still don't want to see it in a comic book movie.
All right. Well, again, I want to make clear, I'm not presenting Supergirl as being one of those movies that I think is going to be positive. That's not one that's on my list. But I do think I'm seeing signs, I think, that this year is going to be a much better year than what we've had in the last several. There are multiple movie trailers that I have seen so far this year that I'm actually at least somewhat excited for. And in the last at least 3 to 4 years, there's only been 1 to 2 max that I've really had any interest in, and even those were with caveats. So
this year already, we've gotten Project Hail Mary, which was wonderful. Tomorrow we get Mario. We've got Godzilla Minus Zero coming out. We've got a whole bunch of like really exciting things coming down the box office. So I think you're right. This could be a turning point year. And this is going to be a year where if these movies succeed, if these more based, movies that don't include the message actually do succeed, and the movies that include the message all, wither and die, it's going to be an undeniable proof positive of what works and what does not work.
This is where the box office, I think, is going to be really important, because Hail Mary, I know that it still has some to make back on its production budget and marketing spend, but it had a really good hold last week, and I'm pretty sure that we're going to go re-see it this weekend, so you're getting additional ticket purchases there. I know there's other people that are going to do so. I think Pro said that Culture had already seen it 4 times,
He's going to see it a 4th time this week.
Wow.
Okay, so I mean, that's a really good thing. And if word of mouth like that continues, I think this gets harder and harder for Hollywood to explain away, especially if you start having multiple movies that aren't pushing the message that people start going to, because they're not going to be able to keep leaning on the excuse that people just want to stay home and stream.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, Ryan Gosling, he put it best the other day, where he said, it's not your job to keep movie theaters in business. It's our job to keep you walking through the door by giving you content that you actually want to see. So yeah, that is 110%, what needs to happen. Like it's not the movie theaters aren't the problem. I mean, the prices don't help. But the movie theaters are not the problem. It's not a movie theater problem or an audience behavior problem. It's a bad movie problem. Nobody wants to go see Hoppers, but they do want to go see the Super Mario Galaxy movie.
Oh, that's right. Karen Owens mentioning as well. There is a Jimmy Stewart biopic coming out as well. I totally forgot about that one.
Hey,
is
that Michael Jackson biopic on your radar?
I have not seen the trailer. I have heard about it, though.
I saw the trailer in front of Project Hail Mary, and I was like, actually looks pretty good.
This is kind of what I'm excited about, is some of the stuff that I'm seeing. Another reason I'm getting excited about it is that a lot of it is not franchise IP sequel stuff. It's original stuff. It's stuff that's brand new, and Hollywood has not been taking risks like that for a while. One of them that I'm most excited about, unfortunately we got to wait till September for, is called Pressure. And that is a Brendan Fraser picture where he's playing Dwight Eisenhower. And the plot of the thing is that there's a meteorologist that they call in who's got to make the call as to whether or not they can go on D-Day. And the issue is that they have this very narrow window during which they can potentially successfully make the assault, because Normandy Beach is being essentially reinforced and fortified, and they need to go on this date. And this lone meteorologist is saying, look, you're going to have storms that are going to hit, 2 separate storms that are going to hit on the day of the invasion. You have to delay. And he's under all of this pressure to say, no, the go date's got to be on the 5th. And it's a character drama, and it also happens to be a true story. And Brendan Fraser,
my grandfather was there on D-Day, so
Brendan Fraser has been having such a career resurgence, which I am so happy about. I'm excited about this one. I'm excited about one that I think I told you about, maybe the Italian Western Heads or Tails. John C. Riley is. I didn't tell you about this. Okay, this
Yeah,
this is
you
a trailer that
you just said 3 words that immediately make me check out John C. Riley.
really you don't like him.
Never found
Okay.
him funny in anything. I've never found him good in anything.
Okay, well, I personally like him, and this is a western, in which he's playing Buffalo Bill Cody, and it's called Heads or Tails.
Is it
Trailer looks
serious?
great.
It's like a
Yeah,
serious role? Huh,
yeah, it's not a comedy. This is a serious movie.
okay.
Um, go ahead.
No, I always love liking him to like the later Will Ferrell movies where I felt like Will Ferrell stopped being funny.
Yeah, when he's doing that kind of shtick, I'm not as big a fan of him, but I do like him, for instance, in Guardians of the Galaxy. I thought he did a good job in that one.
Yeah, he's fine in
Uh,
that.
I have seen him do dramatic roles in which I thought that he did a good job, and what surprised me about this one, Heads or Tails, is that he actually looks like Buffalo Bill Cody, which is a casting choice I never would have imagined. Um,
Be nice to see a Western again, though, tell you the truth.
uh, Yeah, now this is an Italian one. It premiered at Cannes last year, and is coming to the States. I think it's in the next few weeks. I think it's like 2 or 3 weeks. Um, like I said, I forgot about that Jimmy Stewart movie. That one has got a trailer that looks pretty good. Um, what
Masters
else
of
am
the
I?
Universe.
Masters of the Universe. There
Looks
is The
great.
Mandalorian and Grogu, which,
Boy.
I don't know what to expect there. But what's nice is that not all of this stuff is grouped together. That's another nice thing because it means that we've got a solid few months where we'll be able to go to the movies and decide for ourselves. So, um, anyway, probably should get to our first couple of super chats here. We've got one from Satire Station becoming a YouTube member. Welcome to the Crazy House. Don't know at what membership level that you joined, but glad that you're here. Hope you enjoy the content. And then we have Archer Merchant for 5. An article said it's a problem 4 studios will control everything. Funny, Disney essentially has bombing films. Hollywood slowly learning from money loss.
Yep.
Hope so. I don't really like the studio consolidation that's been going on. I think one of the things that we're missing today that we had more of in the old days was smaller studios that handled particular picture types that were sub-labels of the main studios that allowed them to experiment with different genres and different things without
Yeah.
necessarily attaching their main studio label to
Right.
it.
New Line and TriStar and all. Yeah.
Touchstone, yeah, all of those. And the advantage of having those was that it lets you experiment and it lets you play with different budget sizes, different content that maybe you wouldn't normally touch. And it was kind of a R&D proving ground where you could have new people come in, fresh blood, directors, writers, whomever, and prove out whether they could actually put a decent movie together. And then
Right.
maybe they got moved up to the big leagues.
Like you've got the Miramax logo on like the beginning of Clerks, but could you imagine if it was the Disney logo?
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that we have lost something by having all of this massive consolidation. It makes the studios a lot more risk averse, and I think that's bad for the audience as a whole. And part of that has come from the fact that they only want to chase blockbusters. They got so addicted to the idea of these big tentpole pictures that they forgot that it used to be that you had this mix and you could take risks and have these low budget movies that every once in a while one would hit big and that could finance other stuff. So I'm hoping maybe what we're seeing now, that we're getting some more original content. Maybe they're getting more comfortable with the idea that they can't just milk these IPs endlessly, and they're going to have to start earning the audience trust back again.
Sort of like a resurgence of B movies.
I wouldn't be objecting to that. It's like take for instance the one that we watched just the other night on our last Lorn and Apollo show, that Night of the Lepus.
Yeah.
I hate to give Packing Protons any credit. I still think the movie was a little bit long, but compared to some of the other stuff that we had watched, it was actually pretty enjoyable. It wasn't bad, and sometimes you just want a brainless movie that you can sit and eat popcorn with, and so I'm not against having some schlock out there. Sometimes schlock is fun.
Yeah, it is.
We do have some stories to get to, so I'll start with this one. Rippaverse new release delivers massive dual launch with Chuck Dixon War of Separation finale and sci-fi survival story by Pamela Fitzgerald on That Park Place. The Rippaverse new release strategy is going big again, delivering a dual drop that showcases exactly why Eric July's comic universe continues to carve out its own lane in the industry, without relying on legacy brands or corporate IP. This latest launch features two very different titles released side by side. The Great War of Separation No. 4, a massive high-stakes finale to one of the universe's biggest arcs, and Dirty Deeds No. 2, Wrong Turn, a grounded, character-driven sci-fi story that leans into chaos, survival, and bad decisions. Together, the release highlights what has become a defining strength of the Rippaverse: scale and variety. At the center of this Rippaverse new release is The Great War of Separation No. 4, written by the legendary Chuck Dixon with art by Jack Herbert and colors by Marco Lesko. The issue serves as the explosive conclusion to a storyline that has steadily escalated in both scope and intensity.
So I have read The Great War of Separation 1 and 2, and it is so far my favorite thing I've read in the Rippaverse so far.
You have 3 in that volume of yours?
I don't think 3 is in that. I'm gonna have to get 3, because I think 3 was after the first 3 years. But Great War of Separation is fascinating. I'll tell you what it's about in a second. If you
have you read the other one, the
Dirty Deeds?
Dirty Deeds?
No, but I have the first one, because I have the first story that was told about this. That is written by our friend Carol Brown. And it's a space, it's exactly my jam. It's like space crew, it's in a ship and
is this the one that you were telling me about that you thought I would be into?
Yeah, I think so. Because it kind of reminded me of like a Firefly type situation. Yep. Like crew of misfits on a ship, kind of thing. And Carol's a phenomenal writer. So, I really enjoy her stuff. I'm so glad to see like her book like being pushed right next to a Chuck Dixon book. Like that made me really happy for my friend.
Yep, I agree. This isn't just another chapter, it's a full-scale finale. The Texas Accept unit is pushed into a final confrontation where the battlefield itself begins to collapse under the weight of the conflict. What began as a mission spirals into something far more dangerous, with internal threats emerging and survival no longer guaranteed. With over 70 pages and multiple variant covers, the issue is clearly designed to function as both a narrative payoff and a collector's piece.
So, in the Rippaverse, the United States is fractured into multiple different countries. And the Great War of Separation is like what kicks that off. Essentially, it is Texas seceding from the United States. So in the first book has very few like bits of accept action. So accepts are what basically their version of metahumans. The exceptionals. So essentially, so a lot of the Rippaverse books take place in like this new like Texas country, essentially. A lot of it takes place in like ISOM, for example, and like Salvage PI. So they all take place in Florspark, Texas. And this is the story about how Texas like seceded from the United States. And I'm not sure how it's going to get into like the different various countries that spin off from it as well. It's fascinating. Like it's a really, really interesting world that Eric's created. So yeah, I want to see how it ends. And this story, so like I said, there's really not much super powered action in the first book. And in the second one, it goes off the wall. But the first book is so compelling. Like a lot of it is like political. A lot of it is like, the governor arguing with the United States. Essentially, it's the Mexican cartels are like messing with Texas a few too many times. And finally, the Texans like fire back, which is essentially they've attacked, another nation over the border. And the United States is like, what? And Texas is like, no, you don't get to tell us what to do anymore.
Running parallel to the war-driven spectacle is Dirty Deeds No. 2, Wrong Turn, written by Carol Brown with art by Evan Scale. While Great War operates on a massive scale, Dirty Deeds pulls the lens inward. This time, the crew finds itself stranded in deep space after a job goes catastrophically wrong. Systems are failing, resources are running out, and the only option left is to trust a source they don't understand and probably shouldn't. I like the artwork.
Oh, the artwork is gorgeous.
If Great War is about large-scale conflict, Dirty Deeds is about consequences. Unlike traditional sci-fi that leans into heroism, this story thrives on tension, unpredictability, and the fallout of poor decisions. These aren't idealized heroes. They're survivors, and barely at that. What makes this Rippaverse new release notable isn't just the individual books, it's the deliberate contrast between them. The Great War of Separation #4 delivers scale, spectacle, and a major turning point for the universe. Dirty Deeds #2 offers a tighter, character-driven story focused on survival and consequences. That dual approach appears intentional. Rather than relying on a single flagship title, the Rippaverse continues building a wider ecosystem of stories. Some are interconnected, others stand alone, but all contribute to a growing universe that gives readers multiple entry points. And from a business standpoint,
that's the first one. That's ISOM #1. That was the first foray into the Rippaverse.
And from a business standpoint, the strategy remains consistent. Direct-to-consumer sales, multiple variant covers, and collector-focused bundles. That model has already proven successful with previous titles like ISOM and Alpha Core, and this release continues doubling down on that winning approach.
Alpha Core is really cool too. Alpha Core is like a team of heroes, and the Great War of Separation, I believe, actually is almost like serves as like a prequel to Alpha Core.
Was Alpha Core? I thought that was also written by Chuck Dixon. Is that not one of his books?
I believe it is also one of Chuck's. Yeah.
Okay. This dual launch reinforces what has become increasingly clear. The Rippaverse isn't just experimenting anymore, it's expanding. By balancing large-scale events with smaller character-driven stories, the universe is building depth without losing focus. One story asks what happens when war reaches its breaking point. The other asks what happens when there's nowhere left to run. Neither promises an easy answer, and that's exactly the point. The latest Rippaverse double new release appears to be a statement about what this universe is trying to be. It's not chasing trends. It's not relying on nostalgia. It's building something from the ground up, one story at a time. Whether that story is a war that could reshape everything, or a crew of screw-ups trying to survive their own decisions in deep space. And with both hitting at the same time, the message is pretty clear. The Rippaverse isn't slowing down.
So with the omnibus that I have, I'm reading it in chronological order, not release order. So I just got to ISOM #1, which is the first book, but I've read the whole bunch up to this point, starting with Norfolka and going through, and I really love it, man. I love that these comics exist outside the Marvel and DC corporate, at a time when Marvel and DC are doing things like turning Superboy gay and recasting every hero and this, that, and the other thing. You've got this group of like exceptional people writing exceptional books that are killing it. I mean, this is Eric's with the ISOM first launch. He did exceptionally well with that. It's a thriving business, and if you go to the website, you start seeing ads for them pop up everywhere. So they're aggressively marketing. They're aggressively reaching out into the market, and I have a couple of Rippaverse pre-orders out right now.
And it's hard to believe, but this is going to be their 4th year publishing, which seems like it's gone really fast. But the people over there all seem like they're really great folks. One of the things that I like going by their... Go ahead, sorry.
I would say we've had Carol on the Pro Show before. We've had her on IM4 Empire as well. We've had Andrew on the Pro Show as well. He's great over there. So yeah, and of course Carolyn, who didn't write for them, but she worked with them. Is working with us as well, and just a quality human being. And we've met Eric, and Eric is such a nice guy.
One of the things that I really like about the product that I saw when we were at the MegaCon booth is that these are high-quality books, too. They've got nice, stiff covers with nice, glossy pages, gorgeous artwork. You're actually getting some quality, and I think that really counts for something. Tom, I haven't
got a chance to check them out yet. I've been wanting to, I just haven't.
I didn't remember if you were with me when we swung by the booth or not.
No, I think I got there after you guys went there.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Well, while we were there, we did get to see Caffeinated Wolf. We got to see Caro. It was great to be able to meet them in person, shake their hands, and take a look at the product. And I couldn't be happier for them closing out these major arcs, expanding the universe. We know that they're bringing new talent on board all the time. They're accepting pitches, and that's really cool to see that they're successful and continuing to build this universe. I think those people that got in on the ground floor are going to be really happy that they've got their first editions, hopefully properly bagged and backed and stored away in a nice long box, while their secondary copy is dog-eared on the bed, being reread every once in a while. So
Let me ask you two gentlemen a question about this. How would these fly for two like mid-teen boys like my nephews? Would they get into it, or is it a little bit more adult?
So it depends on the book, really. Some of them are more adult. Some of them have things, it's like language and stuff like that, but none of them are like overtly sexual that I've seen. But I haven't read everything yet, so but teenagers probably not a problem for teenagers, I would say.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, are you asking me or are you asking like Jonas? Like
I'm asking you.
Yeah,
I'm asking you and Lorn.
I would say you're probably fine, like especially with something like ISOM or something like that. And yeah,
would you say PG-13 or R-rated?
Definitely not R-rated. I would say probably PG-13.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe the violence. I don't know. It depends. Like I said, again, it depends.
They read regular comics too, so I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think. I don't think you're going to see anything out of line with what you would see for normal comic book violence. You're not going to see gore and stuff like that.
It's not Invincible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Invincible is all blood and gore and crushing heads and
Invincible
shock value nonsense from the king of hacky shock value nonsense, Kirkman. The guy who built an entire comic book universe with The Walking Dead out of just who am I going to kill next?
We got Michael Steele for 5 Canadian making an excellent point here. You could take risks with movies because of physical media, especially rentals. It was almost impossible to lose money in the long run. And yes, they have completely cut out their own legs from underneath them because everybody wanted to vault their content behind their own streaming service.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping that this is a trend that reverses itself. One of the things that gives me a little hope for that is that I'm noticing that the younger generations seem to be having a bit of a retro fetish. At least my own son is, and I'm hearing from other kids that are kind of getting into retro stuff. So I'm hoping maybe that will carry over into physical media.
I don't think Hollywood wants to produce physical media anymore. I think that it's, like, wait, we could charge the same amount for things, but not actually have to produce something physical. So we save money and make money. Like, absolutely.
I agree they don't want to, but I don't think that they can continue to hold on to these streaming services indefinitely. Eventually, the victors are going to shake out. And unless they generate a new revenue stream, meaning their old revenue stream, I think some of them are going to fail. They're going to have to accept that if you want money, you have to give the consumer what they want.
That's like some of the things with the music industry. Records are coming back. Pressed vinyl is big. They sell out everywhere when people put them out on release. You wouldn't think so, but it does.
Yeah, my son's got a record player and quite a few vinyls himself. He also likes audio cassettes, which this is an area where I'll clash with him because it's like you get the worst of all possible media. But
I don't miss the cassette days.
I don't either, but he likes them. So there you go. We've got Snark for $4.99 saying, "Go Rippa. New is what we want. Great work. Wish I could get my hands on an omnibus." I'm not sure if you do. Have you seen the size of that thing?
Carol calls it trebuchet ammo. So they don't sell them on the website anymore, but I'm hoping that in the future they'll start selling them again. You'd probably be able to get one if you found them at a con or something like that, because that's where I got mine at the convention.
Why'd they pull it from the website? I didn't know they'd done that.
I don't know, but you can't get it on the website right now.
Is it too heavy to ship? Because that thing was huge, dude.
It was big.
That sort of defeats my plan. I was planning to pick one up, and I assumed you could just order it.
Yeah, I thought so too, but apparently it's not on the website anymore. But I could talk to Caro and see if they have more that maybe they'll sell you one.
We'll figure things out. We got Cannon Barnes for 5. Apologies for the detour, but Marv and Tom, are you Florida men excited for the Artemis 2 launch tomorrow?
Artemis
Y'all are
2
lucky to be
tomorrow?
able to see the rocket.
Yeah, that's what I was telling you in your chat, Marv. I'm gonna live it.
Oh, so you were talking about the launch. I just assumed it was like a regular like SpaceX.
No, it's Artemis 2. Yeah.
Artemis. Wait, so they're going to the moon?
Yeah, they're circling the moon. Yes.
Oh, they're circling. They're not landing.
They're circling. They're slingshotting it. They're kind of doing like a figure 8.
What wasn't the point of Artemis supposed to be a manned mission to the moon again?
Yes, that's going to be I think 3 or 4 when they're going to do the actual landing part.
Okay.
From what they're talking, but yeah, I'm planning to live that if there's not any anomalies or scrubs.
Yeah,
so
send me a link. I'll go outside and I'll try to see if I can see the rocket.
That'd be great, man. It'd be fun to do that. I've been like trying to follow a lot of them, but every 2 seconds I go outside, something's going up here. It's insane.
In other words, Cannon, no, they're not interested at all.
What time is the launch tomorrow, Tom?
I'll tell you right now. Let's see if they moved it. Hold on.
Man, I love seeing launches. It's just, you know, I'm
refreshing the page now.
I'm so sad that my parents are coming in. You know, my parents are going to be here for Easter, and they're not going to be here in time for that launch because my dad's always wanted to watch a rocket launch.
Oh man, hopefully he'll get like at least a Starlink that goes up because
there was a launch right around my wedding, and my parents were in town obviously for it, and they went to watch the launch and it got scrubbed at the last minute.
It's going to be
it's tomorrow evening. Okay,
6:24 p.m.
Okay, cool.
And let's see, how long they're going to be here, Marv?
My parents?
Yeah.
They get here Friday. They leave Wednesday.
So that's what date is that? Sorry.
I don't know. Friday to Wednesday.
Friday is the 3rd, and the following Wednesday is the 8th.
Okay. On the 7th, and that's Vandenberg. The 8th, it's to be decided, but it's supposed to be a Falcon 9.
Oh, okay.
And the 4th is also that's going to be decided. They're doing TBDs probably because there's rollback windows for Artemis.
We can talk about this privately, Tom. I think we're boring the audience.
I'll geek off on this.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we've got Eric July on the Snape race swap in HBO's Harry Potter. BFI diversity standards, BAFTA, and UK tax relief explained. And this was an interesting angle on the story, which I'm glad that he picked up on. In his latest video, Rippaverse founder Eric July highlights an aspect of the Severus Snape race swap in the HBO Harry Potter series that not many have been discussing. As Eric July states at the beginning of the video, he's not piling on to the discussion about the Snape race swap that heated up after the trailer was released, leaving that to other creators. Instead, he sheds some light on something that no one is talking about, an organization called BFI. The British Film Institute, or BFI, is a film and television charitable organization that promotes and preserves independent and mainstream filmmaking and television in the United Kingdom. On the BFI official website, they call themselves a cultural charity and the UK's lead organization for film and the moving image. The BFI maintains diversity standards that determine eligibility for awards, tax relief, and public funding. BAFTA, the British Academy of Film and Television Arts, adopted the BFI diversity standards for film for its BAFTA awards, essentially the UK's equivalent of the Oscars or Golden Globes, back in 2019 and expanded them to television by 2022. To be eligible for the BAFTAs, a production must meet at least 2 of the 4 standards: on-screen representation through diversity in cast and storylines, creative leadership and crew diversity, training and mentoring for underrepresented groups, and audience development strategies for underserved groups. The UK Equality Act of 2010 defines underrepresented groups according to race, ethnicity, gender identity, disability, sexual orientation, religion, age, socioeconomic background, and regional participation. If these productions do not meet these representation standards, they are not eligible for BAFTA consideration or other benefits such as tax relief or public funding. But wait, there's more. It's widely known that the UK offers a 25% tax credit for qualifying productions, something Disney particularly likes taking advantage of, which is why so many Marvel movies are filmed there now. However, to access the credit, productions must meet the BFI's diversity standards. Almost all of the productions in the UK take full advantage of this, and why wouldn't they? Although it's not much of a choice, being that the BFI not only extends eligible productions tax relief for the diversity standards, but those standards are a contractual requirement for all BFI public funding. Harry Potter, being a British IP with a largely British cast, was of course filmed in the UK. They would want to take full advantage of the tax credits, particularly because Harry Potter is such a large project that'll be filming for almost a decade. HBO will also want the prestige of winning BAFTA awards in the UK. Eric July argues that the main reason for the Snape race swap was to receive these reliefs and fundings from the UK government and to be eligible for the BAFTAs. Changes like this do not rest on a casting director's final say. In order for the Harry Potter show to be eligible for a BAFTA, it must check all the DEI boxes, and as Eric July illustrates, that's how you get the Snape race swap.
I would count. Who freaking cares about a BAFTA? Most people don't even know what they are.
Oh, it ain't about the awards. It's all about that public funding and tax credit.
Yeah.
Sounds like it should be a Star Wars healing tank.
Yeah,
it's pretty close.
At the end of the day, they could have made it any other character, almost any other character, and it probably would have been fine. Like if you had made it McGonagall, I think people still would have been annoyed, but it wouldn't fundamentally break the character the way a race swap fundamentally breaks Snape, because it invites in racism into the equation.
Yeah.
What was the character's name who was like the groundskeeper?
Hagrid.
Filch.
They could have made him.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and what's so frustrating about this is that there's a part of me, there's always the part that thinks that the reason that they wanted is to have a shield against criticism for the show, and I think that that's, to them, that's an added benefit. But because this alters the relationship, and not to say that the relationship between James Potter and his cohorts and Severus Snape were good to start with. They were obviously bullies, but the context matters. And when you have them behaving in the way that they do in that novel, it comes off as a completely different thing if you have race swapped that character in particular. Now, let's look at the reverse. James Potter, they could have, well, I guess actually they couldn't, because that would introduce other issues. But let's say for the sake of argument that you wanted to. The reason they wouldn't do that, besides the fact that it would then change the race or the appearance of Harry, is that it would make him a villain. And I'm just wondering how they're going to try and thread this needle. I feel like if this is going to work, they have to do something to change the way this dynamic worked. Otherwise, it comes off as a totally different thing.
Yeah, not only that, but like things like, every year when something bad goes wrong, Harry and Ron immediately blame Snape. So many things about Snape that it changes the entire story when race is brought into the equation. Even like his title, the Half-Blood Prince, like that's a little weird too. But also, what's interesting to me now is that now you have our space, and like the actual fans of Harry Potter angry about this because it's not for the source material. It's not, a direct interpretation or accurate portrayal the way we were promised. The other side of the equation is still angry because of J.K. Rowling. You have The Verge writing articles titled "There is no ethical consumption of the Harry Potter series." So when they announced Black Snape, I said, this is a no-win situation. Because now you're going to have the actual fans and people on our side, like basically being like, I don't like the race swap. And then you're going to have the other side being like, I don't like J.K. Rowling. So now, because you tried to please the other side and you're never going to please them. As long as J.K. Rowling gets a single red cent from this, they will always hate it. I mean, it's still going to be popular. It's still going to make money, but they will always hate it. But now you've got both sides hating it. And so the discourse around this show is going to be wildly negative. I am not looking forward to, like, you know, they're right now they're making a big deal out of like they're sending death threats to Papa Isidu. Like, I got death threats for what wrestling show I watched. So like that's the welcome to the internet. But like what I am concerned about is these like 10-year-olds who are cast as Harry, Ron, and Hermione when, you know, when an It's Ma'am is gonna like start screaming transphobe in their face.
Well, okay, so let's carry this premise out a little bit. If neither side is going to be happy with this, and they essentially get a rings of power situation, do they start rethinking trying to do the entire series?
No, I think they're committed for this. Because it's Harry Potter. It will still, even if it bombs, it will still do better than pretty much everything else they have.
That feels to me like you put an awful lot on the line, because that
I mean, look at so you look at something like Hogwarts Legacy, right? The left hated Hogwarts Legacy. They were making curated lists of streamers who have streamed that wizard game so that they could be harassed.
Right, but I mean,
meanwhile, the game sold millions of copies.
I
Nobody
love playing
cared,
it.
you know, like nobody listened to the crazies. But they also had put in not only put in a biological man identifying as a woman in the game, but made it so that you could make your character that too.
the thing is, though, to me, is that they tried to branch out beyond Harry Potter with Fantastic Beasts,
Yes.
and it failed. And the lesson that they took from that was that, okay, what people want is Harry Potter. And I think that's why they rushed to going to do a reboot, is because they weren't extending the story beyond, so they wanted to expand the story and keep it going for 10 years, because that's a giant marketing opportunity. But if you have self-sabotaged, that's 2 failed projects in a row, and you will kill it.
Yes, but you both walked around Epic Universe in that Harry Potter land, and that's based off of
Fantastic
Magical Beasts.
Yeah. Yes, but the attraction is not.
The attraction is
based
not,
off
but
of Harry Potter, and that's where everybody flocks to.
The show is that 10 show
Yeah,
is
the show that doesn't work is, yes. But yeah, I mean, look, Harry Potter is the last evergreen IP left in this world. They have ruined Lord of the Rings, or they have ruined and are ruining Lord of the Rings. They have ruined Star Wars. They have ruined Marvel. They have ruined DC. Harry Potter is the last one. And if they ruin this, that's it. There's no more evergreen IPs to mine.
It's an awful risk.
They all get sacrificed on the altar of identity politics.
All right, let me ask one more question, because this is something that struck me from the trailer, is that I was surprised that they seem to be taking a darker, more mature tone with the TV series than they did the movies. Whereas the movies, to me, felt like they started off like Roald Dahl stories that got gradually more mature as the kids aged up. This starts off, to me, looking like the Dursleys are genuinely scary, instead of scary, but also
they're not buffoonishly evil anymore. They're just like evil.
Yeah, and what do you make of that? Do we think that that's just the trailer, or do we think tonally they're going for something completely different?
I mean, I think they're gonna. I mean, look, in the books, they're not as. It all depends on how they react when the magic stuff happens, like, because they are, you know, terrible to him in the books. They're absolutely terrible to him. But like when the magic stuff happens and like things happen, like Dudley gets a pig's tail, or Dudley's tongue swells up and falls to the floor, or, you know, Aunt Marge blows up like a balloon, like how they react to that is going to inform this. Because if they have the cartoonishly big reactions that they had in the movies, well, then I think this is going to be fine. It's all about watching how uncomfortable they are around. I think they have to kind of build them up as so terrible to kind of like really hammer home like how miserable Harry is in the Muggle world. And then when they start introducing magical elements to this, it's going to basically be them getting their comeuppance, and I think that's going to be fine. The one thing that with the Dursleys that I didn't like, though, was like, why can't Dudley be fat? Dudley is supposed to be fat. Like he is described in, I think it's book 4, as being the size of a baby killer whale.
What's your take, Tom? I don't know how closely you follow Potter, but I'm sure you've got some thoughts on this.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at it. I like it a lot. And if you've seen the paraphernalia, it'd be, it's bad. I'm hoping they, as Marvin was saying, I'm hoping they do get comical. I'm hoping the trailer just only shows a little hint and doesn't show the true direction they're going. But I don't know with the, with what they did with Snape, and I'm hoping the actor can act his ass off. Act his butt off for it. And
I have seen a little bit of his stuff. I hadn't initially, and so when it comes to acting ability, I'm less concerned about Papa Asidu than I was, because I didn't know who he was when he was cast, and I've seen some stuff that he's done on stage now, and he brought it. And so I'm open to the idea, and this is part of why I was asking earlier, if he did pull off an amazing performance, would he be able to change your mind? But the more that I've thought about it, you go back to those scenes, and I just don't see how you can square that with, even if let's say he gave the best. Go ahead, sorry.
When he talked about the death threats and stuff like that, the one thing that he said that really rubbed me the wrong way was that, it gives me more of a, like, it gives me more, like, it makes me want to just make the role my own. And I'm like, no, you are not to make this role your own. This is not a role that you can interpret. Yeah. So I think that whatever we're going to get is going to be so wildly different that nobody's going to like it. I honestly don't think it's going to happen. I think that, there's going to be so much rhetoric around it. And look, the 3 kids have not really done much press yet. John Lithgow, in every interview that he does, gets asked about J.K. Rowling and the tease, right? These kids are going to get asked about it. These 10-year-olds are going to get asked about it. And I'm going to lose my ever-loving mind, because Noah Schnapp on Stranger Things was hounded by the Hollywood media about his sexuality. Yep. They are going to have no chill with these children. And the editorials that I write will be scorched earth.
We do have some super chats that are sort of relevant. One is from Reading Addict for $5. Here's $5 for a show I love listening to and look forward to twice a week. Thank you, Reading Addict. That is very generous. Appreciate the praise. And there's another one here, also from Reading Addict for $5, saying, and another $5, but for Marv. Sadly, your show finishes when I'm getting up and ready to get to work, so I can't send a chat then. So,
we go live throughout the week several times. A lot of times when I can't get a video out on a day, I'll just randomly go live. So just make sure you have the bell selected on the thing.
Yep. Thanks very much, Reading Addict. That's very generous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Tennille the 10th for $5. I don't know, Marv. I'm increasingly wondering if this show will fail in the eyes of the money folks by virtue of only making some of the money rather than all.
Some of the money is better than none. I mean, it's going to make more money than things like Peacemaker, and that got a second season. So, but then again, what does it cost to make? That's the other thing you have to think about. Yep. Like, look, at the end of the day, they're losing money hand over fist with Rings of Power over at Amazon, and they're still going. They're still chugging along.
Yep. Marv, I know that you were going to need to bail early tonight. Do you have time for one more story, or do you want to take off now?
What's the story?
It's talking about Masters of the Universe.
Okay, yeah, I can stay for that.
Okay. Give me just a second, and I will bring it up. New Masters of the Universe trailer shows He-Man in epic action, releasing July 5th, 2026.
June 5th.
Sorry, June 5th. He-Man returns to Eternia in the new Masters of the Universe trailer from Amazon MGM Studios. The film, an adaptation of the animated series and toy line from the 80s, stars Nicholas... Is it Galitzine? Do we know?
I would say Galitzine.
Apologies to Nicholas. It's one of those, I think. As Adam Glenn, the Prince of Eternia, who was forced to flee his homeworld as a child when the evil sorcerer Skeletor conquered the kingdom and locked away his parents. Now an adult, Adam returns to Eternia and discovers his inner power to become He-Man and liberate Eternia from Skeletor. Masters of the Universe also stars Jared Leto as Skeletor, Camila Mendes as Tila, Idris Elba as Man-at-Arms, Alison Brie as Evil Lynn, Morena Baccarin. That's Morena Baccarin?
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either, as the Sorceress. Johannes Hakor Johansson as Fisto, and Kristen Wiig is the voice of Roboto. Directed by Travis Knight of Bumblebee, Kubo and the Two Strings.
I like Bumblebee.
I do too. Masters of the Universe will arrive in theaters on June 5th, 2026. Unlike the first... Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, the one thing that's going to ruin this movie for me, if they make one joke where one female member of this cast rolls her eyes at him being called He-Man or makes any kind of joke about him being called He-Man, I can't stand that. Like, does it have to be called Ant-Man? Yes!
Well, it is kind of a dumb name. It's always
but
been
I don't
kind
care.
of a...
I don't care. It's the name of the property. You don't have to be ironic about it. You don't have to roll your eyes at it. You don't have to be meta about it. Just do it.
Well, I think from inside the universe, they would know of He-Man, so I don't think that it would be a surprise to them. But I don't know. We'll see. Unlike the first trailer, which focused more on comedy with a bit of wonder thrown in, the new Masters of the Universe trailer is much more concerned with action, making the film look like the grand adventure fantasy it should be. Instead of a mere tease at the end, it shows He-Man in action, fighting Skeletor's forces and hurling pursuing spaceships out of the sky. His sojourn on Earth is not played for laughs this time, but shown as an exile from his home, something that haunts him as he remembers everything he lost, including his parents. It's not a fun trip to another world for Prince Adam when he returns to Eternia, but a horrific look at what was done to his home. If the movie sells Adam's loss, his transformation into He-Man and the subsequent battles against Skeletor will be more meaningful. And Marv, I love that you mentioned the sword. I love that they got the sword right.
Really did look good.
Every time I see that, it's like, I want this sword.
I agree. I want one also really bad.
Now,
that's probably going to be a MegaCon pickup next year for the wall, because I'm sure they'll be everywhere.
Did you guys notice in the trailer, I mentioned this earlier this morning when we were talking about it, that in this trailer, when he goes through the transformation, it's not Castle Grayskull that flashes behind him like in the first one. It's Skeletor. Did you notice that?
You said that? I saw Castle Grayskull when I looked at it.
I am certain that is Skeletor. It looks different to me than the other one did. And so the reason that I'm mentioning it is because there were two halves of the power sword. Skeletor had the other one, and so that made me wonder if he was wielding Skeletor's half in that scene.
It's possible, but
anyway,
yeah.
The cast looks good for the most part. It would have been nice if there were a greater dichotomy between Prince Adam and He-Man. It mostly just looks like he changed clothes instead of becoming a powerful warrior.
That's a gripe I have too.
If Nicholas holds his own in the action scenes, maybe it won't matter too much, but so far he doesn't seem like he has the presence to play He-Man. Skeletor looks good, though it's hard to tell how much that has to do with Jared Leto, as he's unrecognizable under all of those special effects. There are snippets of his voice in the new Masters of the Universe trailer, and it sounds fine if a little generic.
Very Shakespearean.
Yeah, it's a different take.
Yeah, they were never going to do that evil. They were never going to do that, but it's very Shakespearean.
I'm actually okay with it so far. Now the one problem that I had with it is that there's one line, his first line in the trailer, that is overwhelmed by what's going on in the trailer, and I have not been able to make out what he says in that line. So that's a bit of a worry. But other than that, I think I dig it. I think I'm okay with it. The dialogue about He-Man being unwilling to use his power is reminiscent of the Green Goblin's encounters with Spider-Man in the movies, suggesting that He-Man may have to be willing to set aside his honor to defeat Skeletor. It's hard to get a bead on most of the characters, though, as the new Masters of the Universe trailer, like the last one, is centered on He-Man. That makes sense, and it would be a shame to see the hero of the movie get lost in the shuffle. But aside from some visual flourishes, there isn't much to Tila or Evil Lynn, and the Sorceress doesn't even show up. Man-at-Arms appears to be slated for the mentor role, but it looks like he'll get some good action beats too. And Idris Elba's delivery of "Somebody Wants a Brawl" feels like it came from an '80s movie, which is hopefully the tone of Masters of the Universe wants.
I noticed that when I watched it on my last stream, that the soundtrack was a lot more like a synthwave kind of thing, almost like it felt like if Supergirl felt like Guardians, and it did, this felt like Thor Ragnarok, but like the good parts of Thor Ragnarok.
Yep. I am excited about the fact that it looks to me like they're faithfully adapting the characters. They look like the characters. Gray Skull looks great. Snake Mountain looks amazing.
It does.
I was kind of stunned at how well they had translated that. Even Trapjaw looked great, which I thought was... honestly, I'm geeking out about this because I really want it to be good, and it looks to me like they put on screen what I imagined as a kid. And that's all we've been asking Hollywood to do, is just honor what we love.
Honor the source material.
And I hope that's what they've done here. If it can capture the feel and the sense of fun of an 80s fantasy adventure, Masters of the Universe could be a good time. There have been hints that it will get bogged down in modern-era lecturing, but if the movie itself focuses on fun and leaves the socio-political diatribes to interviews with the filmmakers, it could be an entertaining summer roll. I don't know, guys. I really hope they're treating this as a major franchise relaunch. I agree that the Barbie toys look awful, but the other toys, the action figures, look great. I just really want this thing to deliver, man.
I do too. I really hope it does. It could be a new franchise out there that that I think people will get really into. Look, there were some missteps in the marketing of this film. There was, at the end of the day, I know for a fact that the pronouns in the first trailer are played for a joke. It's played for a laugh. But people have their shields so up, and I can't blame them. I don't blame them at all for that. Because if they think for a second that this is getting wokeified, they're not going. And then the director said the most mindlessly stupid thing he could have said, where he referenced toxic masculinity in reference to Skeletor in this movie. And I know what he meant. He meant that He-Man is positive masculinity. He-Man is kindness and strength and protectiveness. And, Skeletor is domination and aggression. But that's what you had to say, not a culture war dog whistle, not a progressive saying that's being used to be weaponized against, men everywhere. So that was the wrong thing to say. He just chose the wrong word.
So I'm going to ask one more thing. Do you think they're going to dedicate this movie to John Irwin?
Yeah, maybe.
I really think they should. I think that would be the cherry on top if they dedicate this to the voice of the man who embodied that character. I think that would be a really nice touch. And I like the fact that, this is a stupid thing to get excited about. And actually that's going to be my final question I'll ask you. I got excited about the fact that they listened to the people that were commenting and said, you missed a giant opportunity to have Cringer be the MGM Lion. I love that they did that.
They did,
but it leads to the next question. Is it just Cringer that we've seen, or are they having Battle Cat without the barding? Because I want to see Battle Cat in his full armor.
They're probably saving that for the actual movie. You don't want to give away everything in the trailer.
Yep, I agree. I hope so, because it's not going to work for me if he's just the big green cat. All right, Marv. I thank you for being on here tonight. I really appreciate you doing your duty here.
Later, Marv.
Is there anything you want to pitch before you go?
Thursday night, 7,000 subscriber celebration on the M4 cast on the M4 Empire. Make sure you're there for it. Tomorrow night, I'm going to be on Geeks and Gamers Play after seeing Mario. So, we'll have a good time there. And then after that, I believe I'm going to play Mario Galaxy on M4 Empire Gaming. So please make sure you subscribe to the M4 Empire and M4 Empire Gaming, my two channels. Thank you guys very much.
Thanks for being here, man. Appreciate it.
Later, Marv.
All right. Next up, we've got Former Amazon executive blames Hollywood's fear of offending for creative decline. Many moviegoers have expressed the feeling that films just aren't the same anymore. Now, a former Amazon executive is speaking out, explaining what changed in Hollywood, when it happened, and why. In a New York Times op-ed, Roy Price lays out his argument, a perspective that may strongly resonate with audiences. Yet Price also sees a glimmer of hope, inspired in large part by the success and reception of Project Hail Mary. Price spearheaded the launch of Amazon Video and Amazon Studios, serving as head of the division for 3 years. In 2017, he was forced to leave the company following Me Too allegations, though he was never legally charged. Since his departure, Amazon has grown into a major Hollywood player, with its latest success, Project Hail Mary, receiving widespread praise from both critics and audiences. Some industry insiders are likely trying to understand why the Ryan Gosling film became such a widespread hit. In his op-ed piece, Price offers one possible explanation in an essay titled, "Project Hail Mary is Fun. Maybe that's all it takes." He contrasts this film's broad appeal with Hollywood's recent emphasis on political and social messaging, tracing the shift to 2016. But the most recent era, which started in the wake of Donald Trump's election in 2016 and went into overdrive after 2020, was one in which political and social messaging were what seemed to matter most in Hollywood, he writes. He may have simply spoken the quiet truth out loud, and he's just getting started. In the next section, Price lays out in detail where he believes the industry lost its way. Dionysian elements of popular entertainment, irreverence, sexual frankness, and broad, even scatological humor, were cast aside as the industry sought to correct historic wrongs and resist current ones. An unmistakable censoriousness and fear of saying or doing the wrong thing seemed to settle over the creative process, Price writes. He follows this line of reasoning to a clear conclusion. Avoiding contemporary wrongs has produced overly cautious and restrained storytelling in Hollywood. Cultural and political considerations played an outsized role, not only in what movies got made, but in how success for these movies was defined. What didn't seem to matter as much? Making sure that audiences were filling seats. Price argues that prioritizing correction over creativity has driven audiences away from theaters. Raunchy comedies and steamy thrillers may not tackle social issues, yet many once served as cultural touchstones that united viewers. Stories that are creatively and culturally safe often fail to captivate audiences. This doesn't mean films must be R-rated to entertain. The broader point is that entertaining used to be the priority, and now, according to Price, it often is not. This tension between caution and creativity sets the stage for broader industry reflection. While Price is no longer active at Amazon, his industry perspective still carries considerable weight in Hollywood. Moreover, he may not be alone in holding these opinions. At a recent screening of Project Hail Mary, star Ryan Gosling stated that it's Hollywood's job to make movies worth seeing, not the audience's responsibility to keep theaters alive. Taken together, Price and Gosling highlight a broader conversation about Hollywood's priorities. Whether Project Hail Mary sparks a genuine shift or remains a one-time reminder, the conversation about Hollywood's priorities has only just begun. So, I think this is really fascinating because you have people that are behind the scenes and actually Hollywood players beginning to speak a little more openly in the press. They're signaling that it's okay to begin questioning the orthodoxy that has been going around for the last several years. And I suspect that's an authorized signal from on high. It's prepping the battleground, the social battleground, so that they can claim we weren't forced to do this. We came to this recognition ourselves and realized that maybe we should do something fun because we like fun.
No, they like money. They like
yes.
money. They cut their nose off to spite their face on going the whole let's say, shall not offend nobody direction. And in hence of doing that, they offended everybody that really mattered, the audience.
Yeah, and
sensibilities, families. You lose that, what do you have?
I think there's a lot of truth that they didn't care about audience money because I think they were getting money from elsewhere. I think there were very there were political reasons for everything that they were doing, and Now I suspect that a lot of that money has dried up, and they can no longer afford to offend the audience. And with the consolidation that we were talking about earlier, there's not as many places to go if you fail somewhere as there used to be. And so I suspect things have sort of locked up in the industry. And what's happening now is a liberal application of grease. What do you think?
Yeah. I, I'm trying to be PG, Lauren.
Well, I appreciate that.
Um,
Um,
and let's just what he said. It's not the audience's job to save theaters. Okay, it's their job to get butts in seats, make a movie worth seeing.
and in
Where
a
can we definitively say they decided to change that outlook, and why? Why?
well,
What caused them to change that outlook? I would love to know the actual moment when they all said, "Hey, let's just embrace this."
Well, in my mind, two things happened. I think the first one was the Me Too movement. When Harvey Weinstein was finally held accountable for his actions, I think everybody in Hollywood suddenly puckered because Harvey was not the only one that was engaging in those kind of activities. And suddenly they realized we're all vulnerable and we have to get on board with this new movement to believe and listen to all women regardless of the circumstances. It's just we've got to appear to now be virtuous. So I think that was number one. Number two was the 2016 election, and those two things happening together gave them permission in their minds to be moral scolds, in my opinion, and to try and hold themselves up now as the pinnacles of virtue that we all, us plebs, should be aspiring to, which is laughable when you consider what they were trying to cover up.
Yes. Um, I won't go there, but I'll just say that whole the Me Too movement. Nobody ever thought about putting a pound symbol in front of that, did they?
Yeah, I've heard that one before.
Yes, I got
uh,
in trouble for that at work, by the way.
yeah. I think the only other thing that I would say about the Ryan Gosling comment is that there's still a little bit of wrong target there. It's not the movie theaters that are at fault for what's been going on. It's the
No,
studios.
no. The
The
problem is they're
theaters are,
suffering because people are not going there.
yeah, they're
The
suffering for the
whole
decisions that the
lockdown didn't help that
studios have
situation either.
made. Yeah, so it's been kind of interesting because in my area, we've only got two movie theaters, and both of them are fairly small compared to what you would call a major metropolitan area. We don't have big fancy screens really here. They've had to get really creative in how they have been keeping themselves afloat, and so they are doing the classic cinema, which I really appreciate. I like the fact that they're running classic movies every few days a week. They've also started doing Monday mystery movies where they don't tell you what you're buying a ticket for, but the ticket's only $5. And I think
Oh,
that's
wouldn't
actually
it be
kind of
bad if you
smart.
walked in and it was the new Snow White?
Or the Easter Bunny movie, yeah. But I
I
mean,
don't know, man. I think I'd rather see the Easter Bunny movie.
but I think that's actually kind of clever because it's like, if you got a couple of hours to kill and you don't know what you're doing,
Do. It's like the
I,
mystery box, buying the mystery box that you could get a rock, you could get you can get something nice. You don't know. And
yep.
yeah, I can see
So
that could be fun. That would draw an audience. That would draw, that might get me to go in a couple of times to see what I got.
yeah, I mean, and if you're free for a night, why not? I mean, compared to anything else you could do today, $5 is pretty cheap. So, next up, we've got Supergirl star Millie Alcock preemptively blames sexism for backlash ahead of film's release. Echoes She-Hulk rhetoric. This is not a good sign. As conversation builds around DC's upcoming Supergirl film, actress Millie Alcock is already addressing the criticism and backlash she expects to face, and the way she's framing it is raising eyebrows. In a recent interview, Alcock suggested that much of the response to her casting and performance may stem not from storytelling decisions or fan expectations, but from something else entirely. When asked how the Game of Thrones fan base prepared her for the backlash she expects surrounding Supergirl, she said the following: "It definitely made me aware that simply existing as a woman in that space is something that people comment on," the actress claimed. We've become very comfortable having this weird ownership of women's bodies. I can't really stop them. I can only be myself. It's a striking statement, and one that arrives months before audiences have even seen the finished film. Alcock also acknowledged that criticism of the superhero genre itself is nothing new. Whenever a new wave comes along, there's going to be criticism towards it, she said, when asked about comments by people like Martin Scorsese. Not every film is for everyone. The beauty of art is that you can be selective about your taste. That's a fair point on its face. Audiences have always been selective, and not every project lands with everyone. But paired with her earlier comments, a different picture begins to emerge. Rather than focusing on the creative side of the project, its story, tone, or direction, Alcock's remark leans towards reframing a potential backlash as something rooted in audience behavior rather than the film itself, and that's where concerns start to surface. For many longtime viewers, this kind of messaging isn't new. In fact, audiences have heard something very similar before, most notably from She-Hulk star Tatiana Maslany when that series faced backlash. Okay, so that's all of the comments that she had made previously, so we already hit that. Maslany said, "There's so much resistance to a woman just existing in that space of superheroes. There's always going to be that. I sort of anticipated it. It's why I also feel it's important. There's such an entitlement to space held by certain people, and to even exist as She-Hulk is like an F.U., and I love that." The similarities are hard to ignore. Two different actresses, two different projects, the same core argument. The criticism isn't about the quality of the product, it's about the audience. And that's where things start to break down. Because She-Hulk didn't just face criticism, it became one of Marvel's most divisive projects, with fans pointing to weak writing, inconsistent tone, and a clear disconnect between creators and the audience. Instead of engaging with those concerns, the conversation around the show often shifted towards dismissing criticism outright and labeling fans as toxic and sexist. Now, with Supergirl on deck and DC trying to rebuild trust with audiences, the question becomes unavoidable. Is this really the road Hollywood wants to go down again? The timing here matters. DC Studios is in the middle of a major reset. With new leadership and a renewed focus on rebuilding its cinematic universe, Supergirl isn't just another release. It's part of a larger effort to regain audience trust. That makes early messaging especially important, because audiences have seen this exact approach before. When She-Hulk faced backlash, the conversation quickly shifted away from the show itself and towards the audience. The result was a deeply divisive series that failed to connect with a large portion of its audience and became one of Marvel's most controversial releases. It arguably damaged the trust and overall relationship Marvel has with its audience to this day. And that was with 3 phases of goodwill under Marvel's belt. This is DC's second movie. With Supergirl, the same kind of framing is already beginning to take shape, before the film has even hit theaters. And that's where the concern lies. Because when the conversation surrounding a film begins by dismissing criticism before it even arrives, it doesn't inspire confidence, it raises questions. Questions like, is the studio confident in the product? Or is it preparing a narrative to explain away inevitable backlash to a weak script? Adding to the unease, there's already been growing online speculation surrounding Supergirl, with discussions ranging from poor early audience reactions to possible behind-the-scenes changes during production. None of these claims have been confirmed, and they should be treated as unverified, but the conversation itself is interesting when related to this quote. Because when a film is surrounded by uncertainty, whether it's speculation about test screenings, rewrites, or tonal direction, audiences start asking questions, not just about what the movie is, but about how confident the studio is in what they've made, and that's where the messaging becomes critical. When the public narrative begins to frame criticism as inherently suspect before the film even releases, it can come across less like confidence and more like insulation. Not engagement or accountability. Insulation. Audiences have seen what that looks like before, and it looks familiar. There's no denying that Alcock faces pressure stepping into such an iconic role. Supergirl is a beloved character with decades of history and a passionate fan base, and with that comes scrutiny of performance, of writing, and of tone. That scrutiny isn't unusual. It's part of the territory. But when that scrutiny is framed as something inherently suspect, it risks alienating the very audience the film needs to win over. At the end of the day, audiences will judge Supergirl based on what's on screen, not interviews or headlines, not preemptive defenses. The film will either resonate or it won't. But as this early conversation takes shape, we have to wonder, Is this really the messaging DC wants surrounding one of its most important upcoming films? Because if history has shown anything, it's that audiences don't respond well when they feel like their voices are being dismissed before they're even heard. And that's a lesson Hollywood has learned the hard way more than once. So Marv is really passionate about Supergirl. and that's coming across. That actually surprises me a little bit because, again, this is a character that I don't have a particular close tie to. There have been multiple different interpretations of this character. I never particularly gravitated towards any of them, but that also makes me more open to, I think, to whatever performance is going to come across here.
Do you
But
remember the series from CW, the Supergirl series?
I didn't watch it. Now
I
that was
watched that with my daughter and some other people.
that
And
was the Melissa Benoist version, right?
yes, and
Okay.
it really it had a lot of stuff in it that I didn't like, but the actress, she pulled it off. She pulled it off. She did a nice thing of it. She played the two roles really well. You know, the differences from her alter ego and so forth.
Now, I remember going and seeing the Supergirl movie way back in the 80s,
I don't
and that was Helen Slater, and I don't remember very much about that movie at all. I remember liking it because I was a little kid, and I remember that my dad hated it, if I remember correctly.
I don't remember that movie at all. So
Yeah, it was not. I'm certain it was not a great movie. The only two Supergirl versions that I really have any kind of tie to at all was the Supergirl from the Death of Superman arc in the comics, and then the version of Supergirl that was in Smallville. And I liked both of them well enough, but honestly, they didn't make enough of an impression on me that anything really stuck. And so I think this is part of why I'm a little more open to this than I think most others are, is that I don't really have a predetermination in my head of what Supergirl should be. So the real question for me is going to be, does this character have an arc? And if so, how do they handle it? Are you going to go see it, or
um judging how she portrayed in the last Superman movie, how her character was a drunkard, and I want to see it because of Lobo, but I don't want to see it because I don't want it to ruin the character of Lobo. It's
um,
just I was a fan of the Lobo comics when I was a kid.
I have a feeling he's going to be safe just because they've got him in the movie. They obviously want the Lobo image. What I saw in the trailer looked like he was in character. And from what I understand, I don't think he's in the movie all that much. I think it's going to be more of a cameo than anything else. So I don't think they're going to have much of an opportunity to ruin him. At least I hope not. So
Hmm.
time will tell.
We'll have to see, but I mean, would I go in the theater if I got nothing else to do and I can get a matinee? Maybe.
And if not, I assume you watch it on streaming when it comes there.
Yeah, or the high seas.
All right, gotcha. Our next one up is Hollywood critics trashed the Super Mario Galaxy movie with rotten review score. The divide between critics and audiences is once again front and center as the first critic review score for the Super Mario Galaxy movie hits Rotten Tomatoes, and it's deja vu all over again for Nintendo fans, and at the time of this article writing, it was at 44% on the critics' tomato meter. According to Rotten Tomatoes, the Super Mario Galaxy movie currently sits at a 44% critic score, firmly in rotten territory after 59 reviews. Meanwhile, there's not yet a verified audience score, but box office projections are calling for a massive holiday opening weekend. If this sounds familiar, it should. When the Super Mario Bros. Movie hit theaters in 2023, Hollywood's Access Media critics delivered a similarly negative response. The film landed with a 59% critic score, barely scraping by, while audiences told a completely different story, pushing it to a 95% verified audience score with over 10,000 ratings. That gap wasn't subtle. And now, with the Super Mario Galaxy movie review scores rolling in, we're seeing the exact same pattern emerge. Critics downplaying the film while audiences appear ready to embrace it. A look at early critic reactions reveals a consistent theme. Complaints about story depth, narrative weight, and lack of emotional center. Critics argue the film is empty or lacking substance, too focused on spectacle and franchise elements, and light on character-driven storytelling. In other words, it's a movie meant to please fans. The horror. But here's the thing. What they're describing is exactly what many fans expect from a Mario film. These movies aren't prestige dramas or cinematic art pieces about the state of the world. They're colorful, fast-paced, game-inspired adventures built around fun, nostalgia, and iconic characters. Judging them through the lens of traditional Hollywood storytelling expectations may be missing the point entirely. If there were any doubt about how audiences might respond despite the negative Super Mario Galaxy movie review score from critics, early box office projections are already telling a very different story. Industry tracking is currently estimating that the Super Mario Galaxy movie could deliver a staggering $350 million global opening over its holiday weekend, putting it on pace for one of the biggest animated debuts of all time. To put that into perspective, that projected opening alone would surpass the nearly month-long global theatrical run of Disney's Pixar's Hoppers in just a matter of days, a movie the Access Media critics gave a 94% Rotten Tomatoes score to. While Hollywood's Access Media is busy labeling the film empty and soulless, audiences appear poised to show up in massive numbers, echoing exactly what happened with the Super Mario Bros. Movie, which audiences turned into a global phenomenon. What we're seeing with Mario Galaxy movie review coverage isn't new. It's part of a broader trend where critics and audiences are increasingly out of sync. For years now, critics often prioritize messaging, structure, and thematic depth. Audiences prioritize entertainment, fun, and rewatchability. And when it comes to something like Mario, a franchise built on gameplay, charm, and simplicity, that divide becomes even more obvious. The first film proved that critics don't determine success. Despite negative reviews, the Super Mario Bros. Movie went on to become a massive global hit, driven almost entirely by audience enthusiasm. At this point, the gap between Hollywood Access Media and everyday audiences isn't just noticeable, it's expected. The Super Mario Galaxy Movie review situation is simply the latest example of a pattern we've seen play out repeatedly. Critics deliver a cautious or negative take, fans ignore it and form their own opinions, and the box office tells the real story. If audiences respond the same way they did in 2023, the Super Mario Galaxy Movie could once again prove that the people buying tickets, not the critics, had the true final say. Now, this is another movie that I have been excited to go and see because I really liked the first one.
So
But
did I.
I'll admit I've got a few nerves about this one because I watched Jeremy John's review today, and he's a critic that I generally trust. And he was kind of soft on it. He said your kids will like it, but you won't enjoy this one as an adult the way you did the first one. He kind of described it as a bit of a muddled mess. Now, I'm hoping that maybe this is just his take and that it's not going to broadly represent what the movie actually is. There's a possibility I might actually go see this tomorrow, so I'll know more then. But I'm actually a little more cautious about this today than I was yesterday. Have you seen or heard anything about it?
I've been purposely staying away from it because I want to go to the theater after I get through tomorrow and launch, and I want to go see it. I'm purposely not watching any trailers on it. I'm not watching anything on it just because I want to just go in blind. It's just like telling me that a critic said, "Oh, this McDonald burger's great." I'm going to ignore that.
Yeah, I get that. I like watching a variety of critics because after a little while, I kind of get a profile of how somebody reacts to a movie, how they're judging it. And I get to a point where I do trust some people's judgment. Jeremy
I
is a
trust
good.
my friends' judgment on their movies.
Yep.
So I mean, you Marv talk about it. You come back rave. Culture comes back raves. Everybody, my other friends, my family members. If everybody's saying it's great, I kind of go, well, wait a second. Somebody's got to find something with a little bit off about it they didn't like, and I want to hear that too.
Yep.
But I still want to go in and just judge it myself. I don't try to prejudge a lot of
Yeah,
it.
I totally agree. And when we were doing the after party show on the Pro Show today, I was talking to some folks in there, and I said, one of the interesting things about doing this is that I can get a feel for a movie based on the trailer, but the trailer is you can never trust it, because I've seen so many bad movies that had great trailers, and I've seen some great movies that had terrible trailers. And so your objective always when going in to watch the movie is to forget everything that you have been doing prior to it. Forget any judgments that you have started to make and go in with an open mind. Be prepared to be surprised, and that's a hard thing to do. It's almost like taking a whiteboard and wiping off the marker on it, because you can't help from starting to form an opinion, but you got to be willing to let it go and be surprised. And that's the toughest thing about it, being some type of a movie critic, I think, because you also have to try and judge it from the perspective of, okay, maybe this isn't my cup of tea, but I can see where it would appeal to somebody else. And you've got to be honest about those things too. And so I think the most important thing a critic can do is be as honest about their biases as possible, and as honest about their opinion as they can be, and then allow the audience to disagree if they don't agree with your take. And the fun then is in the debate.
I mean, you got it. You go in, let's say you go in without knowing anything, right? Let's say, well, let's change it from Mario to Supergirl. Let's say we didn't hear any of the stars, anything. We just go in plain. You got to give it a fair shake to really to criticize something. But then you got to look at, okay, who's this made for? The Mario is for video game fans who into Mario and stuff. These critics, they're looking at it for it to be some kind of masterpiece, like they're saying, something with heavy. No, it's a video game movie. It's kind of mindless.
It would be interesting to go back and look at the tomato meter score for the Super Mario Brothers movie that came out in the late 80s with Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo.
Oh, that was hilarious. That was a funny movie.
I was horrified with it.
It was funny, but I just looked at it as, okay, this is not serious. This is just going to be hilarious, funny crap, and that's why I liked it. It was.
I think the one worry that I have for Super Mario Galaxy is I think they want to go big, and I think they want to go bold, and I think they really want to show off the possibility of an NCU, like what Pro has been talking about, of all of the characters in the Nintendo universe. I think there's going to be a lot of cameos.
I want to see what I'm looking forward is Star Fox, and I can't wait to see what else they got in there.
I think there's going to be a lot, and the sense that I'm getting is that they may be doing too much of that they're going too broad, and maybe the picture gets a little bit
kind of going the Marvel route with making all the characters show up in Endgame.
Yeah, like maybe they're just doing it a bit too much, and I don't know. I'm curious to see. I'm going to have a slight detriment, I think, in watching this movie, because I got out of Nintendo before. I mean, basically, when the Super Nintendo came out, I dropped. So I never played Super Mario World. I never played Super Mario Galaxy.
Really?
So, yeah, I never did. So that's going to cause me some problems here, because we're starting to get into characters and people I don't know. And so
you might want to pick up those games, cram them. You got a couple hours.
Yeah, this is where I'm going to get into a bit of geezerhood, where it's like, who are all of these people? I've never heard of these guys, But if the jokes land, I think it'll be fine. So, no, I was not a Sega man. In fact, we got a Sega Master System before I got a Nintendo Entertainment System, and was so disappointed with it, we took it back and got a Nintendo then instead.
I was spoiled, Lorn. I had television. I had Atari.
My first console was a ColecoVision.
I had that one too.
I loved the ColecoVision.
I was a spoiled little pre-tech guy.
I wish I still had the ColecoVision. I know it couldn't possibly hold up to my memories, but
it's just. Dude, if you tried playing with that joystick, you'd probably want to throw it across the room instantly.
For those that don't know, it was a giant paddle, and you had
Yes.
this, and I think it was the same on your Intellivision, where you had this joystick that was kind of up at the top of it, and you had two side buttons. Think of it as almost being like like a TV remote, because you
It's kind of like
had
an upside down mouse.
yeah, you had these two side buttons and a joystick in the center, and then you had a keypad with 10 numbers that were on it, and you could slide inserts into the keypad because a game might have special functions for
Function.
the particular game. Um, in a lot of ways, I think the controller was actually ahead of its time because it
It's
was
kind of
pretty
like a Steam
versatile.
Deck. It's kind of like a Steam Deck, or like for streaming, a Stream Deck. Programmable buttons, but it just didn't have any fancy graphics. You put the card in, the game told you what it was, and you just press the button on the card.
Yep. Yeah, in a lot of ways, that system was ahead of its time, but then the video game crash happened, and we had to wait for Nintendo and Sega to introduce their own system. So,
And Sony.
uh, yeah, eventually the PlayStation. I never had one of those. I did have a
I still have
PSP
all my
for a while.
PlayStations.
I'm kind of jealous of the fact that you retained a lot of the hardware because that stuff's going to be valuable.
Yeah, I got all of them. Matter of fact, behind my green screen, they're on the shelf there, and yeah, I got them.
They still function? Is everything still running?
The first PlayStation does not no more. I gotta pop it open. I think there's a couple bad caps in there.
Yep.
But it's the PS2 does, the PS2 Mini, and the PS3 still does work. I popped that open. I kind of changed the batteries on them for the motherboard for the PS3. Sorry, PS4. And I also had what was the one? My God, it was a Sega, but it wasn't a Genesis. There was another one. It had the disk drive which sat on top of it. It was like it's one of you had to add on to it. I can't remember the name of that one. Neo Geo, was it? It was
Oh
like
yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was another system too for a while that was supposed to be the 3DO. You remember the 3DO?
3DO, yeah.
Yeah, that was around the time that multimedia computing was all taking off.
Oh yeah. I mean, could you picture if they re-release some of these things at the prices that they are today? It'd be scary.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. By the way, I see that Sean's out in the audience. Good to see you, sir. Got to see you down
So,
there in Florida. It was an honor to meet you in person. I haven't seen you since then, but really
wait,
glad that we got to get together.
he was in Florida and what?
Yeah,
Dang it.
yeah. It's weird, isn't it? But it was fun, and that was a lot of the fun of being down there was getting to meet some people in person. Anyway, that was all that we had for stories for tonight. So we'll segue into the main topic, which was we already talked about a little bit at the beginning, and I'd kind of like to get some of you guys in the chat in here on this a little bit. My thesis is that for the first time in a very long time, I'm excited about seeing multiple movies in a row. And I also tried to caveat this morning that I may be getting out over my skis on this because I think that there's a great possibility that things will change again after the midterms. I'm hoping that's not the case. I'm hoping that maybe the studios actually are getting interested in making money again. And I just wanted to bat around the possibility of one, the movies that look like they may be good coming out, why we think they might be good, what we think they require to be good, and just the general state of the industry. I see that Mortal Kombat 2's already got a mention, so
We-
apparently.
yeah, I want to see that. I'm a Mortal Kombat fan. Always have been.
So I'm going to be displaying my ignorance here again. I never played the Mortal Kombat games. I'm familiar with the concept. I never saw the Mortal Kombat movies. I've heard Kevin and Marv talk about them quite a bit, though. And my sense is that there have been a couple good ones and a couple of really bad ones.
Yeah. The first one when it came out, it was neat to watch because we had nothing else to judge it on. But yeah,
Yeah, So
It-
are you excited for this one, for the new
yeah,
release
I'll go
coming
see
out?
that. I'll go see it
Uh,
because I
I
like,
I
as I
can't
said, I'm a Scorpion fanatic, so yeah.
I can't think of the name of the guy. Why can't I think of it? Um
Did you ever see the game Tekken?
yes. Was there a
That one I
movie?
like playing also, and I heard there was supposed to be a movie about that. I don't know if they really did it or if the script got out. I don't know.
I always beat my husband at Mortal Kombat. I
Hopefully,
hope you
that's just
mean
a
the
game.
game. Yeah. we we went to the same place.
I'm kind of frightened now.
Finish him.
Hmm.
I
Flawless
see
victory.
Sean did mention Masters of the Universe. Yeah, we've been talking a lot about that one tonight. I am practically vibrating from the trailer. I really hope they get that one right. Um, the sequel to the OG one, Annihilation, may be the worst movie I have ever seen.
Yes, Annihilation was ridiculous. They screwed up the. Don't get me
And
started.
and I saw Highlander the Source. No, actually, get started because I want to hear about it. What made this
They
so
screwed up
particularly
some of the
bad?
character developments in the way they did. I believe. Oh man, I have to try to. You know what, Lauren? We should watch it.
No, no, I don't think so. based based on the way you were just talking about it, and besides, you said they screwed up the characters. If I
They,
don't know the
they screwed up some of the
characters,
characters game wise. It's been so long ago. I just got halfway through and I shut it off and I just couldn't get it.
it's a flawless recommendation there.
I mean,
Uh,
I'm going by the game, you know.
well, right, because we're constantly preaching about being respectful of the source material, and I think that's a prerequisite to anything being good. So, the guy's name I was trying to think of, Carl Urban. He's
Okay.
been the focus of the marketing on this new movie. I believe you're going to have to tell me if I'm wrong here. I think he's playing Johnny Cage. Is that right?
I have to look. Maybe Johnny
All
Cage.
right, let me double check.
I I'm bad with the names of the actors sometimes. Everybody's
Yeah,
saying,
it is Johnny Cage. So, yeah, Carl Urban is the guy who played Bones in Star Trek 2009. He's also the guy who played Dredd in the most recent Judge Dredd movie.
I still haven't seen that.
Okay. He's in The Boys.
Okay, I know who he is in The Boys.
Okay.
He's Butcher, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so. So, do you think that that's a
He's
good
gonna play
match for him?
Cage?
Yeah. Let me. I wonder if I can. Yeah, Billy Butcher. Yeah, that's him.
Okay. I don't. That's interesting. I want to see how he
So,
does.
so have you not seen the trailers for this most recent
I
Mortal
purposely
Kombat?
been not watching trailers for these reasons. My
Oh,
reason
okay.
for is because I kind of want to go into these blind.
Yep. Okay. Well,
I know it's weird, but
this is going to be tricky for me to talk about then because
go
it's
ahead.
like you know the characters and I don't. But
Okay.
I would say that the trailer that I saw looked good, but not knowing the characters, I can't judge if it's accurate. And if you haven't seen them, then that makes it kind of difficult to talk about.
I'll have to watch the trailer then. And dang it.
I,
Okay.
I, people in the chat are saying he was in Riddick too. I didn't know he was in Riddick.
Yeah, I didn't understand.
I did see. I knew he was in Lord of the Rings. He's been in a lot of stuff. Guy is
I
phenomenal.
know
I
he's been
feel.
there. I just can't see him. Well, Extreme Memes is saying you have to watch the trailer to understand why he's a great Johnny Cage. Okay.
Yeah, and honestly, my I know you're trying not to spoil yourself. I don't feel like the trailer gave away anything that would be
All right. I'll watch
spoilery.
it afterwards.
I think it's worth a watch. That's just me though. Um, Moving on from there though, it's like some of the movies that we've been talking about are Obviously, Super Mario Galaxy coming out tomorrow. There's going to be the heads or tails that I talked about. There's going to be Pressure. There's going to be Masters of the Universe. There's going to be that Jimmy Stewart biopic that we were talking about. There's Michael that Marv mentioned, and I haven't even seen the trailer for that. My son was talking about that one.
I haven't seen the
He's
trailer.
excited about it. Is there anything else coming out that you're aware of that you're excited about for this year?
Not really. Nothing that's popping in my head right now. As I said, the most one I'm looking forward to is He-Man.
Yeah, it's now it's kind of funny because I remember as a kid coming home after school. That was the thing I was most excited about. Is He-Man was playing when I got home, and I watched an episode every night when I got home from school. My favorite Christmas memory is from a night that I woke up. It was early Christmas morning, and I had actually forgotten that it was Christmas. I got up because I had to go to the bathroom, and I walked out, and then I saw the Christmas tree, and underneath it were action figures arrayed around the bottom of the tree, and I screamed and woke my folks up, and they weren't real happy about it, but they indulged me as I was completely geeking out. And I remember I I had Castle Grayskull. I remember I had a He-Man and the Skeletor figure. I remember having Orko. I don't. I had a villain character named Webster. Um,
I think my brother had him.
yeah, he was cool. He was a spider guy, and he had
Yeah.
this sort of a backpack thing and a grappling hook, and you could attach the grappling hook to things, and it had a string on the bottom, and you'd pull it, and he would go up the line. Um, I I don't feel like I had a lot of He-Man figures, but I loved the ones that I had. And around this time, my dad was practicing pretty serious photography, and he still has a photograph somewhere that he had staged with Castle Grayskull and my action figures, and was trying to build this epic scene. I haven't seen it in years, but I remember it,
That's
and
gonna be
and
cool.
yeah, that's one of my fondest memories. And so even though I'm so far removed from He-Man now, there's a lot about it I don't remember, but I still remember the feelings. I remember the edges of it. I remember the gist of the characters, and seeing what they've created in this movie so far. It's like, man, this looks like what I always wanted. Now, to be fair, I remember going to see the Dolph Lundgren movie in the theaters. And as a kid, you know, it was not what you wanted as a kid because it wasn't Eternia. They were on Earth. They introduced all these weird characters that weren't in the cartoon. But it was hard to deny that Dolph Lundgren made a great He-Man,
He did.
and Frank Langella gave it his all as Skeletor. I mean, he sold the idea that he was Skeletor. So it wasn't a total bust, but it wasn't what you imagined in your head as a kid. And this to me looks like what I imagined as a kid, and it
That's
just
what I'm kind of liking about it. And I gotta talk to my brother about it too, because um I got him really into He-Man when he was little. So he got I all the action figures went to him. All the stuff went, was him, and still has them up in his attic. He still has stuff up in his attic, and I got to talk to him and see if he's going to go see it. He might not even be aware it's coming out.
I, I'm just now that's a whole other aspect to the thing that I'm excited about is I have seen some of the toys that they're going to be releasing, and this looks to me like they seem to have confidence, and that's a good sign. They're treating it as a major relaunch, and the toys look good. Now, I know there have been a couple of He-Man revivals over the years. I missed them all. I do remember that they had some really cool action figures that came out in the early 2000s, and I
Oh,
wish I
cool.
had picked some of those up. They had one of the best versions of Skeletor I've ever seen.
Really?
They were, oh yeah, they were gorgeous. Um, but I didn't see the cartoon that was associated with it, and so I'm not familiar with it. I hope that the toys are good. I hope the movie's good. I'm hopeful, and I'm really hoping it doesn't break my heart. Um, Sean is saying I've seen both Masters of the Universe movies that were in theaters. There were two. Oh,
Really?
yeah, I know of the one. Are you talking about an animated release? Did one of the crossover episodes get a theatrical release that I'm not aware of? That would be interesting to find out. Um, it was okay. The first was the animated movie with She-Ra. I do remember that. I didn't remember it getting a theatrical release though. Um,
Oh, I didn't know that
it,
either.
that's interesting. I do remember that was a big event deal and also largely what killed the line. But that was I remember when we were talking about Marvel and Star Wars dying. This was several years ago. It was when I was still writing for the That Park Place site, and one of the first articles that I wrote was that we've seen this before, and I was talking about the death of the He-Man and the Transformers franchises, and it was because they had grossly miscalculated what the audience was going to the movies for. The toy companies saw the animated show and the theatrical releases as toy commercials. They didn't understand that the kids were seeing them as those were the main feature, and the toys were to let them role play it. And in Transformers especially, they just thought, well, we need to sell more toys, so we'll just kill all of these off and we'll create a new generation of toys and kids will buy
Yeah.
those. And it's like the kids saw that as, you just killed my robot family. And after Transformers collapsed, in the case of He-Man, they introduced She-Ra, which I would argue was not a bad idea. I understand what they were thinking. It's the same thinking I think that Disney had when they bought Star Wars, only in reverse. What the makers of He-Man, what Mattel was thinking was that, well, we've cornered the boys market. Let's make something that we can corner the girls market. And what Disney did was the opposite. They had Disney princesses, and they thought, we need a boys property, so let's get Star Wars.
But then they made it a girl property.
Yes, and in the case of Mattel with He-Man, boys suddenly saw that girls were getting into this and thought, ooh, icky girls, I don't want to be in a hobby that's girly. And suddenly it became uncool to have He-Man. And so this is not a new thing that we're fighting right now. These bad ideas, they pop up regularly, unfortunately, and it's inevitable that corporate needs to be taught a lesson. You don't dictate to the customers what they want to buy. The customers decide what they like and they purchase it. And the more that they keep that in mind, the better off that they'll be doing, I think. First live action He-Man was a Hammer film. Really? I had never heard anything about that. So that's cool. I'll have to look into that a little bit. And Cape Canaveral saying the problem was they didn't think that they could sell any more toys by making more He-Man segments, so that half of the show was just reruns. Yeah, and that was an issue at the time, was that like a lot of the properties at the time, it blew up and it became very popular very fast. And they started overproducing stuff. They started creating a lot of different characters that they were all cramming in all the time, and it started losing some of its core identity. But, pardon me, that was also part of the appeal of Masters of the Universe, was that it was always a everything in the kitchen sink kind of a property. It was both sci-fi and fantasy. It had robots and beastmen and cyborgs and sorcery and
Orko.
Yeah, whatever he was. So, in that
Floating
kind of a
magic
sense,
hat. That's what I called him.
in that kind of a sense, it was hard to get He-Man wrong, because if it was cool, you just threw it in. And a side story: one of the things that I remember as a childhood memory was one of my friends at the time had a He-Man figure that was a villain, and he was a humanoid skunk. He was called Skunkor.
Skunkoid.
And
Yeah.
Skunko. And the action figure, its special power was that it stank.
Stank.
And
It was like a scratch and sniff from hell.
and and there were instructions on the card that was, if the stink starts to wear off, just wash it in soap and warm water, and the stink will come back. And I remember
I have a
trying
story
to,
about that. Go ahead.
as a kid, Stinkor. That's right, Stinkor. As a kid, I remember trying to explain this to my dad. I was always trying to get my dad to play with me, and he didn't understand this show at all. And now being an adult myself with the son and the things that he watches, I get it now, but back then I didn't. As a kid, it was like, why don't you understand this? Why can't you play with these characters the right way? And I remember telling him about Stinkor, and he said, that's his power? He stinks? It's like, yeah, he's a skunk. And I remember Dad was just appalled that this was something they were marketing to kids.
We had
Was
that. I'm telling you, my stepmom, my brother got the Stinkor, and I remember this. He opened the package. She whiffed. She's going over. She smelled the dog. She smelled. She goes back, takes the toy, proceeds to take it in the garage, throw it in the garbage. You're not allowed to have it back in the house. You leave it outside. I was dying.
really, they came up with, I mean, the 80s were a wild time. I remember this would have been after the introduction of She-Ra, because I think that this was a toy that was associated with Hordak and the Horde. But I remember that they introduced a toy that was the Slime Pit. Do you remember that?
I think so.
It was basically kind of this well kind of a thing, and there was like a dinosaur skeleton jaw that would be above the character that you put in the well,
And it
and
dripped down.
it dripped slime onto the character,
Yeah.
and the idea was that this would turn a good guy into a bad guy. I desperately wanted this toy, and I couldn't understand why won't my parents buy me this toy. And it's because you're giving kids slime. It's going to get into the carpet and everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
But as a kid, you don't get this stuff. It just seems cool. And so back then, it was wild, the stuff that they marketed to kids, because it was just like anything went.
Sean brings up Moss Man. He's right. It did smell like pine. They had those toys. I mean, it was insane back then. It was just, it was great. Do you remember the Battlestar Galactica toys that shot the missiles?
Yep. Boba
I
Fett had the
I had
same
those.
thing.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so there's always got to be some scold that's going to threaten a lawsuit and cause things to be
Yeah. Could
safety
you
eyes
if
to
somebody
death.
tried to sue over a Stinkor toy?
Well, it's like I'm going to pronounce this wrong. Bruh, 1776 USA. That figure contaminated our entire basement for months. I'm glad a bunch of you folks remember this. I thought that all of this would be new to you guys, but no, you guys lived through it too. So, yes, and
It's great.
Angel Hickson, the commercials, absolutely the commercials. They were awesome. It was great to be an 80s kid. I would give most of my possessions to be able to go back and relive that time, because I knew it was awesome then, and I know now it was even more awesome than I thought it was.
They couldn't do half the stuff they pulled back in the 80s. The sensibilities would be so people would be no, just no.
No, but that is why I'm excited about what I'm seeing in the trailer. And I understand I'm probably getting overexcited about it. I know I
I
shouldn't
hope
do
not.
that.
I hope we're pleasantly surprised with how good it comes out and how
I
good it is.
am I'm excited that it's MGM, because that's an Amazon company now, and they just did Hail Mary. So
Yeah.
that gives me a little bit more hope. Maybe we're going to get a twofer, and if so, how good is MGM going to look? That's going to be, suddenly it's like they're a major player again. So
He's bringing up about Warhammer 40K from the 80s.
see, now I didn't get into that back then, so I
Miniatures?
don't know what it was like back then.
Uh,
Although they were probably lead. I'll bet they were lead back
You
then.
were I think they were lead or pot metal back then.
Yep. Okay, guys, that's going to be our show for tonight. I'm really glad that you guys showed up. I hope you guys had fun. I hope this was a little more optimistic than some of the other stuff that we usually talk about. Unfortunately, Kevin didn't make it tonight. I'm hoping he's going to be back for the Friday night show. In the meantime, a week from today, on the 7th, we're going to have a very special guest on the show. I think it's going to be surprising. I want you guys to keep your eyes open for that. That's a show you guys are going to want to be here for. So, looking forward to that. I'll wish you all a good week leading up to Friday. Hope to see you then. Till then, take care, guys, and we'll see you real soon.
Take care.
The bell rings every morning. It's off to school and work. Waiting for some fun while my boss acts like a jerk. Pro show afternoons. Midnight sketch can't come too soon. The afternoon sketch can't come too soon. But at night I'm filled with dread. I know just what I'll do instead. Come on and follow me. It's time you see for Lorn and Apollo. Time to laugh and learn. Come feel the burn of what the fandom was. What random fun doesn't escape. Isn't it great? Late night with Lorn and Apollo.